Here we are for the 6th Hecht report, which I think before we begin, we have to come up with a tagline, something cool. And the Hecht report, boom. The Hecht report, what is it?
The Hecht report, your daily dose of dope doings down there.
Done. All right. Or it could be your playlist of what's next to Nolan. All right, I'm here with Michael Hecht, the president, CEO of Geo Inc. The goal of this podcast is a quick playlist of what's happening in New Orleans. I want to start with this beautiful profile I saw in the Times-Picayune of a Q&A about your role as the Super Bowl coordinator.
Yep.
So real quickly, what is the job? What is the role you've been asked to do? And then secondarily, in the first 60 days, what are you seeing?
Thanks, Tim. Great to be here with you again at the Hecht Report. Casual musings of two middle-aged men.
Yes. Over bagels from Henrietta.
Yeah, they're lovely. Flower Moon.
Yes.
They're the best. So in this role, I've been asked by the governor to come in and to, at a high level, I guess you could say, make sure the city shines for the Super Bowl. There are really three goals. One is to get infrastructure and beautification to the level that we look great for the Super Bowl. The second thing that's kind of the ulterior motive in that is to help us get the next Super Bowl, because even while we're having this one, we're selling for the next one. And then the third, and I think maybe the most important motive, is to basically take care of a decade of deferred maintenance so that the citizens of New Orleans and tourists can enjoy these improvements for the next decade plus. So it really is using the Super Bowl as a forcing function to get a lot of work done that we should have gotten done anyway, and we're just doing it now.
So our good friend Tara Hernandez, time to get shit done.
Time to get shit done. GSD.
GSD.
Yes.
So within that, you have a list.
Yep.
How big is this list?
Well, so the list kind of flexes depending on what gets ticked off and what's on. It probably at its largest is between 550 and 600 items. Now, some of those are as small as fixing the wiring on an individual lamp that had the copper stolen, to as big as what are we going to do with Plaza Tower. So it's a massive list.
But there is a list.
There is absolutely a list.
Was there a list before?
There were lists before, plural. What we've done, our innovations are going to, I'm glad you're sitting down, because this is some crypto level stuff.
Nice.
This is the blockchain, fourth dimension, three-dimensional, chess type stuff. So we've combined lists from DPW, DOTD, Sewer and Water Board, French Quarter, DDD, Superdome, and mushed them all together. So now we have the master list. But then what we've done too is we've got an email address, superbowl@gnoinc.org, where we're asking the public to let us know what they're seeing. Send us an email and snap a picture, and then we're using that to crowdsource the list. And so what I think we have today, because now the problems are beginning, or the opportunity beginning to repeat themselves, is we have what you call a MISI, a mutually exclusive, completely exhaustive, gross list of what needs to be fixed.
Wait, what's it called?
MISI, mutually exclusive, completely exhaustive.
Ah.
So it's basically everything.
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 This is the list.
It's the list. And now we've taken that list and we've done really two things. One is that we brought in a company that has a lot of project management experience. They were folks who were involved in rebuilding the Superdome after Katrina, and they've dumped it into some project management software called P6, Oracle software, that's basically Excel on steroids.
Yeah.
And that's producing the Gantt charts. It shows dependencies, it shows timing. That's kind of the master list, and that's what we use to understand every morning when we get up to use a phrase, which neck do we have to wring? What is the critical item that we have to focus on getting done that day to make sure that we're ready in 187 days when the Super Bowl happens? Then so that's kind of the quantitative list. Then we have a qualitative list that we call the hot list. And that's about 10 to a dozen items that are either so important or so complicated that they have to be case managed. Mm-hmm. So first and foremost on that is the French Quarter. right? It's a syndrome. You've got physical infrastructure issues, human infrastructure issues, code violation issues. You have even look, touch, feel, smell issues. And so the French Quarter is on the hot list because we have to deal with it as a whole. It can't just be a bunch of punch lists for fixing the sidewalks.
Yep.
So between that master quantitative list that we're using to understand what we prioritize every day and the hot list, which gives us a qualitative sense of what we have to put special focus on, like we have a special French Quarter little mini task force, that's how we're managing it. And then we're trying to communicate to the public. We just set up a website called nolastreets.info. So if you're bringing your kids to school, you can look on your phone and basically see where the major closures are. And now we're just kind of checking things off.
So first thing is there's a list.
There's a list.
And there's systems in place to manage a list.
Yep.
What have you found? What's been the most surprising thing once you dig in? What have you seen?
By far, well, the most surprising, pleasantly surprising thing is I thought that when we started this process, we were going to run into a range of bureaucratic capacity and cultural constraints. So we're just going to make it hard to get things done. We were going to have to fight through. And in fact, what we've discovered is that the attitude and the capacity of almost everybody, without exception, at the city, at the state, at Sewer and Water Board, at these smaller organizations, has been all you could ask for. People are ready to get this work done. They're excited to get it done. They're proud to get it done. They're motivated. They're capable. And so what I thought was going to be a heavier kind of lift has turned into something where I'm not trying to diminish the amount that has to get done, but every week we get into the same room together and we drink coffee and we eat donuts. I bring them, Hertz donuts this past Monday, and everybody reports out what they're doing, talks coordination, talks offline, and things are getting done. Poydras Street is almost done. The first mural is up on Girard. B. Mike with his kids program, Eternal Seeds.
Yep.
We're getting the lights replaced in the French Quarter. That contract is going out. Dowman Road in New Orleans East is getting remilled. We're working on new signage for New Orleans East. And so I think that that's been the pleasant surprise is that folks are ready to get this done. And
Folks doing the work.
The folks who are doing the work. And I think, and I put out something last past Sunday, I hope you saw it, where I was trying to list and thank everybody.
Yeah.
It's about 40 different organizations. And I just thought it was so important because the piece in the Picayune was nice and everything, and I love the headline, if we win, we win together. But it's really important to recognize that the real work is happening on a daily basis by the leadership and the teams at all of these public and private companies. It's also Verizon, it's also Cox, it's also AT&T. Entergy is obviously the lead partner, not just because Marcus Brown is the chairperson, but also because Entergy is hardening the infrastructure. You got the Sports Foundation with Jay Cicero, who is leading the overall Super Bowl effort with 15 committees. And then, of course, you got to also recognize that you have the Saints. And somebody asked me the other day about the importance of the Saints. I said, well, first and foremost, if you don't have the Saints, you don't have the Super Bowl. That's pretty obvious. But also, if you look at what Dan Gilbert has done for Detroit and Cleveland, that's actually quietly what Mrs. Benson's doing for New Orleans with all the investment in downtown. So it's a big team effort, and we're just there to kind of provide some organization and facilitation and catalyzation of all the doers.
So as you're going through this list of folks and organizations, for someone who might be relatively new to the city or someone who was not deeply involved, it might be easy to say the leadership's not great.
Right.
What I'm hearing is we have great leadership. There is great leadership within the city.
Yep.
And it feels like there's now a system of coordination.
That's right. This feels like all of the component parts were there and it just needed one grain of catalyst. Or the way, for some reason, the image I have in my mind is that it's like a cup that's about to overflow, filled with goodness, and somebody's need to prick the meniscus to make it flow. So I think that's been nice to say. I also think what's been exceptional about this is you got to recognize that what the governor is doing in New Orleans is unprecedented least as far as I remember, and it's working. And so let me just give some
Yeah,
examples.
say more about that.
Yeah. So Troop NOLA. Troop NOLA is flying around here like the A-team, and they are taking the bad guys off the street.
Who is Troop NOLA?
So Troop NOLA is a small group of the Louisiana State Police that are stationed down at LSU Health Science Center, led by Captain Hyatt. And they are going out on a daily basis and addressing, it could be an area of gang violence, it could be moving violations, it could be people illegal vending. They're taking
like a SWAT team.
It's effectively like and I think SWAT team's a technical term, but the way that you and I understand it, it's a special purpose unit.
Yeah.
And they're doing everything in a constitutional way, and they're very highly trained, but they're making a difference. They're making a difference, and they're working seamlessly with Chief Kirkpatrick and NOPD. So that's been a thing the governor did. The sewer and water board stuff, which created a little bit of a stir, but the result of that is that we combined the drainage system all under sewer and water board, which is what it obviously should have been. We were the only place in the universe where the drainage system wasn't managed by a single entity. And that was because the governor did that. And now the Super Bowl, I think, which has, the truth of it is become too big of an event to be led just by New Orleans. I mean, it's basically a mini Olympics now. And the governor has come in and he's basically putting state money, state resources, state political heft behind the Super Bowl. And I don't think we'll ever go back, because this is probably the way an important, an extraordinary but smaller market like New Orleans has to compete with Los Angeles and Atlanta, right? I don't think we can do it alone anymore.
So what does this tell you about the roadmap post Super Bowl? Let's just imagine Super Bowl comes out, Saints kick the winning field goal, we win the Super Bowl, everything worked. What is this telling you about, I guess, the roadmap post Super Bowl? Is there a working system in place that now could create a highly sustainable city?
So the question I get asked a lot, and it's a good question, is why does it take a Super Bowl? And the answer, of course, is that it should. We discussed this actually at the last GNO board meeting, and we said this rhythm that we have where we're meeting every week with the city and the state and other entities and ensuring daily coordination of activity, we should probably just keep it up the day after, because it's working. It's creating a better city. It's creating a better region. That's on mission for GNO Inc., obviously. And it feels that almost because we are this kind of neutral third party without formal authority, it allows us to be in that coordinating role without threatening anybody. And so there's actually some real power in the powerlessness. So my intention as of today is that what we have going on won't change after the Super Bowl, because after the Super Bowl, it's the next event. You know, you've already said, we've got Taylor Swift, and then we got the Super Bowl, and then we got Mardi Gras.
But we do it every year.
Yeah, I mean, not to quote the dead, but what Drake said is, it's a rolling, not a stopwatch. Right? Never stops. So I think that's been the revelation, Tim. And we were talking about this off microphone before. It's doable. And look, we're never going to have.
But that's a big message, I think, to New Orleanians, where feel we'll never get this done, or we're incapable of doing it.
Right.
It's doable is a big message.
Yeah. Instead of what if it works, I think it's what it works.
So we need a comment there.
Yeah. Or like what question mark? It works! Exclamation point. I mean, that's really it. And so I think that if you think about our infrastructure, if we can take it from being a D or whatever it is now to being a B consistently, it's never going to be against Singaporean or North Dallas.
We'll take a B. We'll take a B.
A B would be great. You combine that with crime that's at a reasonable level, and then we deal with some of the other things which we are dealing with, like insurance, then you end up having the culture and the humanity of this place, which are extraordinary. We really become ascendant again, and so I've been actually exhilarated and encouraged by this experience. It's been less frustrating than I expected it to be up front, to be honest.
I always hate to ask this question, but why would it not work? What would it take for the wheels to fall off now? Now that you're seeing the system in place, we've got good leadership, you got collaboration. Why would this not work?
So the risks are, well, look, there's some risks that are kind of out of our control. Whenever some black swan event happens, Now, I don't think another Katrina is likely because we fixed that engineering, the engineering conditions that created that. It was remember, Katrina was an engineering disaster, not a natural disaster. Right. But there, who knows what happens, right? So there's that. I think what would hurt us again is falling into lack of coordination and getting distracted by things that are not fundamental to daily quality of life. I mean, what do people care about? They care about infrastructure, they care about affordability, they care about safety. And then beyond that, they care about things like education, healthcare, amenities. I think as long as we can, I guess to quote Chief Kirkpatrick, be brilliant at the basics, we're going to be good. It's when we take our eye off that stuff that life here becomes more difficult. And so I think the best leadership, and I saw this actually in New York after 9/11, Tim, the best leadership is able to see the cracks in the sidewalk so that they don't trip, but also know the direction that they're walking in, where there's a vision. So like after 9/11, you saw under Bloomberg that New York City was cleaned up and gotten back on its feet. At the same time, he was doing visionary things like Cornell Tech Island. That's what I mean, the ability to kind of pat your stomach and rub your head at the same time.
So what's a vision you see?
I think that New Orleans is ascendant. I think the Super Bowl is going to mark that ascendancy, or reascendant. I think the state is ascendant economically. There's an enormous amount going on, billions, tens of billions of dollars in energy, particularly energy transition stuff, in hydrogen, in bio, in solar. Not to mention the biggest projects in the world going on in LNG, which are stabilizing Europe and getting the rest of the world off of coal. So I actually think that we had a rough period during and after COVID. I think we're pulling out of that on a number of vectors, and I think people should feel optimistic, not Pollyanna-ish, but I think there are legitimate reasons to feel good about our ability to provide an environment where people can live and work and visit that's like nowhere else in the world.
Well, one, thank you for the work. I mean, it takes someone to roll up its sleeves to get in the middle of it. And what you're saying, that it can work. I think that sense of possibility, I think it's a lot of what us as New Orleans just want. Just tell me it's possible. And
what we're seeing is that it's possible.
And the idea of what, comma, is working? Okay, WIW, I like it. Michael, thank you for your time. I know you're extremely busy. We're going to check in a couple times before the Super Bowl, perhaps. Any last parting thoughts?
Two things. That if people are listening to this and they've got suggestions or problems or complaints or compliments, superbowl@gnoinc.org. You can also find information on nolastreets.info, and you can find Flower Moon Bagels at Hotel Henrietta, right by Della Chase.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Have a good week. Get to work. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim.